So our first guest today, this morning, is Professor William Chen, Endowed Chair Professor and Director of Food Science and Technology Program at the Nanyang Technology University in Singapore. And I'm very happy that we have the three GEOs present in our conference today. William is dedicated to enhancing food security by improving the current food system, in particular through food waste reduction. His world-famous food proteins are characterized by their simplicity and scalability. They have resulted in active partnerships with food industry for the development of consumer products. The Going Green program by CNN described William Chen as a game-changing leader in the green revolution. William, please take us into what tomorrow's food science could look like.
Good morning, everyone. It's really a great honor to be here. I would like to thank Dassault senior management for the kind invitation. They all started with a webinar seminar in Singapore. I think you have some people operating in Singapore. And then now here I am in Boston. Thank you so much. It's really a great honor. So I'd like to share with you an experience from Singapore, how we find ways to enhance food system, food security. You may ask, why Singapore, right? What is the relevance to the world? Because it's such a small city state. Okay, so these slides summarize the challenges facing Singapore food security. On the left-hand side, you can see the shrinking farmland. That is a result of urbanization and industrialization pushed by the founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. And that's how Singapore became a very affluent, advanced economy based on manufacturing and microelectronics. And the farmland was more like a sacrifice because at the time, in peacetime, we could import no problem from more than 170 countries. In fact, no countries in the world produce everything they need for the food consumption, including France and USA. So in peacetime, that works. But now it's different challenges because we have global warming, we have infectious disease outbreaks, which affect the food supply chain, and also geopolitical tension like the war in Ukraine. The second one that not many people were paying attention a long time ago, so we started food science effort back in 2014. At the time, I mean, this food is abundant, it was peaceful, no one talked about food waste, there's so much food around. But food waste is a serious problem. You look at this data, in Singapore, if we consider everyone takes about 3 bowls of food a day, 2 bowls go to waste. So that is a sort of scale of the food waste generated. And the last challenge, the third challenge is actually aging population. This is all global. So why I show you this slide, not just about Singapore, it's actually a microcosm of the world, right? So you see farm production is getting smaller and smaller because of global warming, people move to the city. So primary production is getting smaller. Food waste, according to FAO, 30% of the food produced and post-harvest and up to the consumption stage go to waste. So in fact, the FAO estimated that if we can globally reduce food waste to 0, there's no need to worry about growing world population and not enough food to eat, right? So that's the impact on the food waste reduction. The aging population is the same thing. The elderly, like myself and my kids, we have a very different taste about diet, right? So if we produce food that the elderly do not appreciate, then it's also contributing to the food waste. So therefore, this is actually a microcosm of the global situation. But you can also see an interesting concept. That is, when you connect the 3 challenges together, the food system will be better, right? That is what we call the primitive concept of food circular economy, right? Right now, it's very linear, right? So we have a growing world population, then we ask farmers to produce more. No food is enough because we are not addressing the problem in the food system. Yeah. So how bad is Singapore's food? Just now I mentioned 2 bowls of food waste generated per person a day. But you look at, I think the numbers you can look at the slide later on. Just look at on the right-hand side, all these circles. These are the neighboring countries in the Southeast Asia. You can see that Singapore is second from the bottom on the right-hand side. So the red color is actually the smallest. This is food. In red color is a food waste generated for each country in the context of their entire economy. So you can see it's really not limited to Singapore, which means that any solution we develop can be implemented elsewhere. So together we improve the food system. Yeah, so this is a message takeaway from these slides. Okay, so what can we do? So food waste reduction was, we took this initiative to establish ourselves in the food system because when we look at the 3 challenges in Singapore, primary production, we have some colleagues working in the aquaculture. So I don't like to compete with people because it's a small country, limited resources. It's better to do something on your own, right? So we didn't work on the primary production. The nutrition, when we were a new kid on the block, you have no credibility. Whatever you say, no one will believe, right? So nutrition is very emotional, very cultural, very personal. So we focus on food waste reduction. Yeah. So what can we do? So a lot of people are talking about food waste reduction by recovering nutrient or becoming compost fertilizer. But to me, that is what we call recycling. So what we are doing is actually borrowing the success formula for Singapore economy, that is upcycle, add value to the food system. I will explain to you how we add value. So we are not just recovering nutrient for the sake of reducing food waste. It's important to reconnect back to the food value chain. Only then there's a meaningful outcome. Right? So first one is to reduce the generation of food waste. Because no point just recover nutrient from the food waste. You're like firefighting because there's still a huge amount of food waste being generated. For this, we actually have developed through precision fermentation, plant-based natural food preservative. So instead of farming a plant to extract the antimicrobial and antioxidant compound, we are actually doing it using precision fermentation. I think the next speaker, Dr. Ann, will explain to you what is precision fermentation. Thank you. All right, so the second one, so why we develop this plant-based natural food preservative, the objective is to extend shelf life of the food produced. Therefore, that will lead, this is one way to lead to the less food waste that is generated. The second one, as I mentioned, is actually upcycling. So all these are we are not alone working on this problem over the years. The gentleman you see, the guy on the beach, he's from the UK. He visited Singapore. His name is Trisham Stewart. He's famously organized a lunch for 5,000 people in London, not to show people he's rich, but he used ugly food to raise awareness of the importance of reducing food waste. He came to Singapore, visited us. Then we, our interests aligned. Then he also tried to organize in Singapore, but at the time, unfortunately, Singapore is people not quite like this kind of side stream type of food. So we gathered about 200 people. Yeah, so 5,000 we got. But nevertheless, you need to start somewhere, right? So, okay. So that is globally there's sort of a shared interest in reducing food waste. So the last one is food circular economy. You can see the bullet point in blue. That is important because if this is how we use this nutrient recovered from food waste and distribute in the entire value chain of the food system. Only then you will see that the whole thing become meaningful. So example that we have done is replace culture medium using fermentation, traditional fermentation. I think Anne can also explain what is traditional fermentation. And so the fermented solution, we use it to replace culture medium to cut the cost. Very important, because in Singapore, we develop a lot of urban solutions, technology-driven food production system, but it's very costly. Culture medium, the medium is one thing, energy is another thing, and water, so everything is very costly. And so we need to find ways to reduce the cost, to make it sustainable. So this is a very intense slide. I will not go into detail. Just to summarize, we have this food science and technology program separated into two. First is education. That's how we started with the Wageningen University and Research from the Netherlands. But we purely develop education partnership with them because if I go to Netherlands, everyone is 2 feet taller than me because I use it as a very good reason to start something our own, because they drink milk, eat cheese day in, day out, right? I mean, lunch, dinner, they just serve you milk and cheese. So we say in Singapore, we eat more bean curd-based, plant-based food. So and so there's a disconnect, but we are very inspired by their innovation. For those who may know that the movie The Martian actually is inspired by the research done in Wageningen Research and University Research. And the lead scientist actually looked like Matt Damon, but that's a side story. Anyway, so we started this education journey with them. At the time, I'm not sure about the situation in the US or in France, but in Singapore, the pre-university kids, they are not really interested in food science and technology because it's more like a labor-intensive, not really rewarding. So no kids will want to pick up food science as a career choice. So when I go to school, and I went to school to promote this program, I was like, I feel like sometimes like an old uncle standing outside the tube station distributing the flyers, right? So I said, no, that's not the way. So I wanted to inject some innovation to spice things up. And then my university gave me some seed funding, not enough to do the big thing. So, but along the way, we realized that food science is beautiful. You don't have to you don't have to develop rocket science to solve the problem. So with that small seed funding, we just carry on with some simple innovation. And by the end of last year, we have brought back 55 million Singapore dollar to my university. So that's a very high return on investment, right? So now, if you look at right-hand side, it's a research. As I summarize here, is creating the food circular economy model, right? So I will not go into detail. You will see some examples. Okay, this is summarize what we have done. First, I already explained the precision fermentation. If you look at the bottom, the three images at the bottom, the left-hand side is precision fermentation. The ring shows you the antimicrobial assay, so you can see that ours work a lot better than the current chemical preservative, E-number preservative. And so this is being scaled up. And we are hoping that one day this will really become part of the processed food to extend the shelf life. It's being approved by Singapore Food Agency. Singapore Food Agency made this name very well known around the world because we are the first country to have approved cultivated meat as alternative food. Right? The middle and the middle one and the right-hand side one at the bottom summarize our research in dealing with food waste. But here we are very careful. We are not dealing with restaurant and municipal food waste. We're dealing with processing side streams. Because you talk about restaurant food waste, I don't think any consumer will buy anything from you, right? So these are the homogeneous, nutritious side streams. I think in the US, in Europe, there's a different material. There's also a lot of side streams. And so solid state fermentation that help us recover nutrient. And on the right-hand side, this is very similar to yesterday, a few speakers talking about biodegradable packaging material. So we have developed technology to convert the remaining solid residue into all sorts of packaging materials. But whether it works now commercially, that's a separate story. But in the context of proof of concept, we show that the food circular economy is possible. Right? So this is just one example. We use brewer spent green from the brewery, right? And to show that the fermented solution can actually replace the yeast culture medium. Yeah, yeast culture medium. We have a lot of these similar innovation because our technology, tech innovations are mostly platform-based. So we don't develop solution on a one-to-one basis. Rather, we develop a platform so that can be quickly applied to different raw material, but it's similar in composition. So like our fermentation technology can be applied to barley spent green and soybean residue, among other things. On the right-hand side, it's not to show you my picture, it's rather to show you that we can move up to the value chain in the food system. Here is after fermentation, we have developed green extraction technology to separate the peptide and protein portion from the rest. And then we have demonstrated it has an emulsifier function. So if you tell consumer emulsifier, I don't think they will buy what is emulsifier. But you talk about mayonnaise, everybody understands, right? So we just replace the egg yolk in the mayonnaise. It's an emulsifier, right? And then we have created this plant-based mayonnaise, just a proof of concept. And the reporter came, he say, I'll give you 95 out of 100. It's actually quite nice. Yeah? Okay, so this is just to show you that we don't just stay at the same stage of fermentation. We actually move up in the value chain. Okay, so as I mentioned, we work a lot with industry. We have a joint lab with a local food company. We work with a company from Europe, from New Zealand, and from Japan. And these are on the right-hand side, you see some of the publications on fermentation. Yeah. Okay. So the middle one at the bottom, that is the companies which are in a partnership with us. Usually is we do with either direct licensing or IP or research collaboration agreement. Yeah. And these are some of the, on the left-hand side at the bottom, some of the products which are developed from our innovation. I just use one as an example, probiotic ice cube. That is already available in Singapore supermarket. That is one day the Singapore ice maker, the company, came to see me. They say, wow, everyone works on food. We also want to work on food. So I learned the Dutch way to be very direct. You know, after working a few years with the Dutch, I became very direct. I showed them an online shopping catalog. I said, where do you fit in? It's so crowded. You're known as making ice maker, not food producer. I said, why not we combine expertise? You still make your ice cube. We give you probiotic fermentation technology. Then within a year, this product was made available on the Singapore market. Yeah. So these are some. We don't just go to talk to company. We also develop, publish fairly good papers in the scientific journals. So that gives us credibility when we talk to industry. And we also do not just stay in Singapore, because the whole idea is that in time of crisis, when countries stop exporting food, if you have a personal touch in technology transfer, working on the solution together, then it's easier to overcome the challenges together, right? So we are very busy engaging regional partners like Asian Development Bank, Mekong Institute in Thailand, and so on. So we are also working with countries facing similar challenges like UAE and Israel. So this is some of the photo you see. And we also work with FAO on the global policy on cultivated meat. You may have seen online. There's just released, FAO just released a global policy on the cultivated meat. We are a very active participant of that global expert meeting. And now we are working on the global policy of other tech-driven food. Yeah. Okay, so these are the, so this is my last slide. So of course, although we work a lot with industry, we also work a lot with government agencies in Singapore. So our Vision is actually Singapore government's policy magazine. So you can see they are paying a lot of attention to the food security challenges. And we also contribute sometimes about raising awareness of how to enhance food security through tech innovation. So this is my last slide. I must say I may be the first one to finish so soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chen. Thank you so much. One question before we go to precision fermentation, because you announced it. The logistic, does it change if you want to create or build a sustainable value chain? How do you have the logistic at the national or regional level evolve or transform? How do you do in Singapore?
That is a good question. In fact, we are also working with government agencies. We are running two national initiatives. One is called Future Ready Food Safety Hub. That is directly linked to our work with FAO. The second one is called Singapore Agri-Food Innovation Hub. So that is to connect the solution provider with the demand driver. But you look at Singapore, for those who have been to Singapore, we have a lot of startups, but not necessarily everyone is successful. That's because startups, they have a lot of constraint in terms of funding and the market knowledge. Whereas the MNCs, we've been working with the MNCs, they are interested in our innovation, but they may not be interested in putting capital investment to set up all the infrastructure to scale up the innovation. Okay. So here is a new platform, we call it SAIL, right? Sailing, right? So it's to actually to facilitate the connection of both.
To catalyze.
So, yeah, because MSC, they know what market needs are, and then a small startup can just ride on their knowledge, and then they would develop this, scale up this innovation, then create
as an intermediation.
Yes. So this is what we are doing now.
Okay. Yeah. I think there are some questions in the room.
Yes, thank you, Professor. It's a wonderful presentation. It's interesting to see that food is connected, as we were listening to Robert Weinberg yesterday, to health. And from what the takeaway I had from his presentation, aside of the amazing presentation on oncology and cancer, was please eat well if you want to reduce the risk for cancer. So have you, in your studies, evaluated the connection, I suspect, connection between, of course, reducing waste, but also increasing the quality of food as related to nutrition or health?
This is a very good question. In fact, we are at the stage of scaling up our innovations, and we have been sort of, in principle, awarded a mega fund by Singapore government to sort of not just developing farming innovation, but also look at how these new food ingredients interact with the gut microbiome, and what is the nutrition outcome in terms of nutrition impact. So I think a lot of people talk about plant-based alternative food. They will say, oh, this is better than meat, but I think we need some science-based evidence, and gut microbiome is one of the ways for us to address this very critical issue. I also think sometimes when people develop plant-based meat, they tend to be overly enthusiastic. They say, stop eating meat, just eat plant-based meat, but consumers think otherwise, right? Because you need to add in a lot of things to make it look and taste like meat. Yeah. But in that process, it's a losing battle because consumer will first see this hyper-processed food.
Yeah.
Second, once the more you promote, the more they will scrutinize. And once they taste something different, they will stop eating. So my view is that plant-based alternative protein should stay alone as a separate standalone category so that consumers have more options. Instead of say we are here to replace, but a nutrition assessment obviously is the next step we are doing. Yep.
Any other questions in the room? Well, if not,
yeah.
Thanks again, William Chen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the scale of opportunities.